couple of weeks now, but just officially, I'd like, on behalf of the committee, to welcome you and to thank you for volunteering your time. And second is our newest member tonight, Joe Coakley. Also on behalf of the committee, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for your volunteering your time. So lucky for you, you're in the busy season right now. So we have a lot of work to do, and look forward to working with you both.
Same here.
Right. Okay, Mike. Make it short and sweet.
If we could skip down to item 3 and have the people that are here present their budgets, and I'll do the inspection and dog officer. So if the town clerk wants to come up.
Good evening. We are requesting, have 2 requests that we ask. We are requesting a full-time assistant town clerk to add. The workload is increasing tremendously, and the state, as of January 1st, came with us with a new records law that we have to comply with. Within 10 days, we've gotten 2 extremely large requests. If we don't comply, then we can be sued. And the other one is for the elections. We're requesting a $2 raise per hour for the poll workers. I did a survey with the other towns, and the average is $11 per hour. Ours are currently making $8 per hour. So they're dedicated, they're very dedicated, and their caring group work long hours, and I do think they deserve that. So those are my only changes for the budget.
Any questions? Okay, well, we're all set then.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is the school department.
Good evening, all. Everybody enjoy a day off yesterday?
Day off.
Well, the kids get to stay home with you, so it's a day off for us.
Bill Belichick says no days off.
Yes, well, we're going to see if we can win a game tonight, too. I guess that's another way to look at it. A couple of different items I passed out tonight. I don't know if everyone has it, but I distributed 3 items, or 2 items, really. One that has enrollment as of March 1st, which is our second major report to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Education. On the flip side is also our special education numbers broken down by area of disability. I want to talk a little bit about that tonight. And then the other one that I gave you was the PowerPoint presentation that basically takes that one-page scenario that you have that explains the budget and breaks it down into some rationale. But I wanted to spend a moment, if I may, and then I know you potentially have questions. We have requested through the Board of School Committee a budget of $28,186,662, or an increase of $2,074,376 for a percentage increase of 7.94%. And we feel that we continue to offer reasonable class sizes, highly qualified professionals, good, but to be quite honest, not what I expect for state assessment results. Good, but what I don't expect for college placement results. And one of those things that I think is important to talk about briefly is that our college placement acceptance is very high, but the actual number of students who go on to 4-year schools is not where it should be, in my opinion, for the type of community that we are. And I think a lot of that has to do with educating not only the students, but also educating families about choices and opportunities that are available. The other area that I think that we do a really great job with, but we've had some significant changes this year, is you'll see that our special education budget projection is actually under tuitions, and overall is actually down in one line item, $239,000 and change, and another line item, the curveball. Last year, you didn't hear me talk to you about Project Early, our preschool, and I do want to make a public comment about that. Preschool, as it pertains to the school budget, is a required program. This is not a program. There's some folks out there who really believe that preschool is just something that we're doing because we want to spend money and we want to try to deal with certain groups of students. That's not true. We are required by law, once a student has an IEP, to offer the Project Early, which is what we call our preschool program. And that starts at 2.9 years to 3 years and up. And this year, what we learned from the local early intervention programs is that we typically are somewhere between 12 to 16, as high as 15 in 1 year, of students who are aging in during the school year. We were communicated with this year to expect 32. That's double the typical number. So we're projecting out a Project Early teacher with 2 paraprofessionals for this year, and we'll be doing the same again next year, just because of the increased numbers. When I started here in 13-14, we had 73 students in the program. We're at 91 right now. We're going to be easily at 100 in the fall. And so what we're seeing is these actual increments. And the other part of this is that these are Norton residents. I want to make sure that we all know that as well. These are Norton residents. This is not school choice. This is not students that are coming in elsewhere. They're Norton residents. Now, for those students that we're required to offer the programming, we also then offer, at a cost to families, model students, or community peers as we call them. And these are students that literally are integrated as part of the program, as an idea of having students who don't have learning disabilities working alongside and being part of the peer group for students, predominantly around socialization, but also around the general academics of a preschool classroom, if you will. And those are charged $2,500 per student for the 10-month year. That was an increase of $2,000 the prior years. We increased it by $500 last year. And the class sizes there can range anywhere from the low end of 4 or 5 to the high end of 10, 12. It all depends on the service delivery of 2 days, 3 days, half days, required full days, special education, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another part that I wanted to emphasize with you tonight, because we didn't expect it. We didn't project it internally. We had no data that shows us that we should see these numbers. We can't really rely right now on birth rates because our birth rate data compared to enrollment in kindergarten is way off. We saw that from a few years ago when we projected lower numbers, and we got the lower numbers, and then those same projections are holding true for the next 2 years, and we've had to add a classroom in kindergarten. So we've gone from the low end of the 140s in 1 year, which is that first grade that's going through right now, to the 169, 173 range, which brings us back to our numbers were like the years prior to that year. Our budget is also, I think, reflective of the issues that we're dealing with. So we've asked for some reinstatements of positions. The Director of Guidance, Counseling, and Social Emotional Learning, which used to be a supervisory 6 to 12 position that was cut a number of years ago, would come back as a K to 12 position. We're basically going to do a 2-for-1 as part of this job. The librarians are back, but from 3 to 2, and the counselors, the counselor at the LGN is to go from part-time to full-time. Literally the new positions within your budget are the coordinator of literacy, and that goes back to my opening statement about I'm not really happy with where we are for our current state assessment results. We continue to have literacy issues, and we are trying to literally get people into the classroom to support the staff to then support the student in improving our results. Again, our results are good, but I expect them to be better. And then the second one is the computer science teacher at the high school and the digital learning specialist. Again, those are targeted areas that you have seen before. We are also recommending a change in transportation. Many of you, some of you in the room, some of you on the FinCom and I have had discussions about this, and a number of parents, as well as folks that have supported the school budget and those who haven't. And that is the $350 transportation fee in our budget proposal as part of the $2 million increase is eliminated. We're also projecting out having to cost out 2 more buses, and the process there would be we would stick to the mandates of K to 6, and the current pay and ride students and any other student would go through a same application process with the same due dates, probably even earlier, but no check attached to it if in fact the fee system, no fee system is approved as part of our total budget. The second part is to move away, as you know, from that very deep discussion that took place last year with athletics and pay to play. If I haven't thanked you yet, I think I have, but if I haven't thanked you yet, thank you for supporting the $150,000 from the fall town meeting, which we did put towards this, which stopped us from going to pay to play. I also want to emphasize what is the difference between pay-to-play versus fees. Pay-to-play means if there's 50 kids on the football team and it costs X number of dollars, it's divided by 50 students and everybody pays the same. Of course, we would have to do something with fee and reduced lunch and all that. Fees means we collect the same fee no matter what, and the budget, operational budget, offsets the remainder. That's the difference. Currently, we are a pay-to-play district where our budget was offset last year, and we're going into this budget process as that. So we're recommending that we redo the fees at $125 per sport, per student, per athlete with no cap, and that the line item for athletic fees increase according to the line item of the athletic budget. So we don't have these surprises that it's a $250 fee, let's make it $350, $450, or pay to play. We literally would go into a process of, on average, our athletic department is anywhere from 2 to 4%. We've had a couple of years in the past because of new items at 5%, but on average, we're 2 to 4% of an increase. So $125 goes up 2 to 4%. The next year, the same thing, and so on. Makes it a lot more, we believe, a lot more reasonable. The other issue I think that is really important is that we are maintaining and budgeting for next year 38 students in out of district, down from 60 in 2013-14. Again, as I've said to you in prior years, some of it is luck, but we believe a lot of it is better programming. Again, this year we're currently going to be potentially internally at no added cost of the budget, moving a position from one school to another to literally split a required special ed program into 2 different programs in the same school. The difference there is, or the reason there is really simple. I either do that at no cost of the budget, or I'm sending children out of district. I either split it or I send kids out of district, and I can guarantee you that the cost of multiple students out of district would be more than 2 or 3 teachers, 2 or 3 kids with students with one teacher. So we continue to do that as well. Full day kindergarten continues to be the #1 priority of the district for the 4th consecutive request year, but we have a change. We are projecting out $225,000 in school choice funds for next year. We have actually our first graduates of the school choice program this year. We're projecting using $175,000 of that money into earmarked for full day kindergarten. Now, we say earmarked because it would be within our own budget process. And like we've done in the past, I think in my time here, when we've asked for money or we've taken money or used money, we've shown where we're utilizing it. And in this particular case, the actual cost as part of our budget is $145,242, which is less than any other projected year for full day K. So there's an example of school choice being utilized, I think, in a positive way. The remaining school choice funds, to let you know, will be school committee decided, but in generally it's our technology 1-to-1, it's professional development, and it's one-time costs in, we'll be seeing online textbooks becoming a priority in the very near future. We'll start to dabble in that at the middle school, and we're actually looking at the areas of such as science, math, and English as the 3 priority areas, predominantly in 6 to 12. Lastly, Michael has recommended a school budget at this time, from what I know and what we've spoken about and we've publicly stated, of $993,369, which is $70,421 short of the level services $1,063,000. So we appreciate his work in this, and in the number of changes that he's had to make, and working also on the positive side of things like the health care and all of those issues that the town has had to undergone in the last year. So our school committee recommended budget shortfall is $1,081,007, and the recommended portion of the school department overall potential override of $2168774, which is the quote override number from last Thursday's Board of Selectmen's meeting. So in general, a couple of things that we have not shown you in the past that I would like to offer. One, we are cutting 2.0 elementary teaching positions. We have shown what we know so far, which is we have letters from 2 teachers announcing their retirement and a savings of $60,000. But I'm going to tell you, just in the last few days, our enrollment since December is up 18 students, predominantly at the elementary level, predominantly at the LGN and Hay side of town. So Hay 4 or 5 could come from any part of town. LGN, we do have projected numbers at the JCS and LGN of 24, 25, 26 in number of classrooms. So these cuts, which we were looking at and talking about back in December and January, didn't look like this. So already we're tinkering with some of those numbers, but that's our projection, and we're going to stick to those right now. We've prioritized literacy, counseling, and technology needs. And the story what I would like to share with you with the counseling is really simple. A year ago, this past December, this past year, the total number of students with what we call social emotional learning, behavioral learning today, it's literally a new phrase in education for mental health problems, mental health issues, and in some cases hospitalization. Last year, the total hospitalization at the secondary level was 6 students. By Christmas this year, we had 10. These are students that come from every demographic, every color, every situation, every AP course to honors to kids who are at risk. It is not a targeted one type of group. It's a literally mental health situation that takes place for numerous reasons that has an impact on school, and we have to provide direct services. The other thing that I wanted to go through real quickly is in the handouts that I provided you, the new ones in particular, I wanted to take a look at the special education 2017 numbers, which Gene Sullivan, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, is here tonight. And that is that we currently have in our database using October 1, we'll use March 1 again, right, and then we do end of year reports. So you have to kind of understand that these numbers fluctuate a little bit. A student who's in the process to potentially being on an IEP is not in these numbers, or vice versa, a student that's coming off. But what you will see, and I thought was really, really interesting, is that the areas of disability where students are, number one, which is noted on the page that you have. But I think it's also really important that this year our numbers reported October 1 was 18.3% total. And the state average actually went up to 17.4 from 17. So I've never, until last year, we started to see numbers in the mid-19s percentile, but you've consistently averaged between 20 and 22% year after year after year. So I think that this is a combination of a number of things that we're attempting to do, trying to do, not always successful in doing, by the way. But number one, it's really trying to provide direct services in the classroom. Number two, that comes with a cost. And really, at the end of the day, in some instances, the costs that we have associated with these things are required of us, and in sometimes they're what we consider best practices. In other words, we want our Wilson certified teacher to work with any student, not just a child that's on an IEP, that could potentially prevent a student from getting or receiving an IEP because of their learning disability. And then I think one of the big things that I always try to do is get rid of some of the misinformation. And a couple of weeks ago when I was here, there was a lot of comment and complaining about comparing our cost to educate a student versus one specific town in the area, and for the sake of professionalism, I won't say who. But let me just assure you that the 2015 audited Department of Elementary and Secondary Education suggests the following, that although that district has 112 more students, which I would not consider a whopping number, they are currently spending $1,988 more per student than the town of Norton does, or in general, overall, $5 million more. Now,
What's the price per student?
I'm sorry?
The dollar value per student.
It's in 2000 audit is 13,219. That's all line items in. The other community is 15,207. Again, this is all line items in. This is not just operational local.
If you get everything that you want, you will be about 14,167.
Yes, I believe you're right. I don't have the exact number, but I believe it's just over 14,000.
14,000. So
Correct.
we're not too far off from where they're going.
No, again, I guess when you look, I don't know what their increases are this year and all that,
Just
so.
saying,
yes.
Based on your numbers, we're over
Yep.
14K.
Right, which in some general sense, I guess also speaks to a couple of the line items that I think are important to discuss, right? The biggest one for us has always been, unfortunately, special education, transportation, and then healthcare. Those become our three. The town picks up the healthcare portion, but that does become part of our overall numbers. And that's the part that's always difficult because, today I spent a little time trying to address the issue of how do I know for a fact that any student that is a resident of the town and doesn't go to Norton Public Schools A, is going to school because there's a requirement to go to school, regardless if it's homeschooling or private schooling, regional vocational, regional agricultural, the charter school. I can get information in any of those scenarios. If it's a homeschooling, they've been approved through General Neal's office in terms of the process. We have contact information, addresses, and so on and so forth. If I get October 2nd every year, I get something from Southeastern Regional, Bristol Aggie. I can look at students' names. I can look at addresses. I can verify. I can decide that I myself want to go knock on the door to see if Flaherty is, in fact, the Flaherty that lives in town, and so on and so forth. I can't do that for the charter school right now. And to me, that is something that needs to be addressed. Now, I called legal services at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They said, I'm not sure where I can get you an answer. So I was asked to send an email to legal services, and I expect that I'll get some type of response from them. I should be able to verify that your cherry sheet that you just get can, at minimum, just verify that those students are still here. And I'll tell you why. Every year, we find something. Every year that I've been here, there's something. And sometimes it's an address change, one side of town to the other. It's that simple. But we should, if we're being held accountable for these things, have that type of information. If there's 134 students going out of town somewhere to some school somewhere, and in fact, there's state money being used for it in any way, shape, or form, regardless if it comes from the cherry sheets or it comes from your approved budget, I should be able to verify confidentially, because it is a confident, I should be able to verify that the public funds are being used for the public purpose. And so that's basically my question. I hope to get an answer before we meet again or before town meeting, and I'll share that answer with you, Mr. Chairman, and you can share it with the rest of the group. And I know this because Mike and I actually always exchange the information on some of this as well. Lastly, in the budget, you'll see a significant change. Number one, you'll see it's gone from about 80 pages to about 35 pages. That's simply, we took the 5 individual schools, individual line item reports out. You're more than welcome to have them if you'd like them. It just stops me from copying literally 500 sheets of paper. But we have them available and can get them to you in a timely manner if you'd like to see them. That's part one. This part two is we've added a section on FTEs, okay? And we did that to kind of just show you very specifically within the budget, regardless if you think somebody makes too much money, not enough money, it's too expensive, whatever it is, it shows you how many bodies that pays for. It shows you if it's a new body, and it shows you in this budget, and it shows if the potential percentage of bodies or the FTE percentage that's paid from something else, a grant, and so on. And so that's just another way of trying to be more transparent, because I know sometimes in the past I've been asked for an alpha list of all employees and that type of stuff, and you can cross-check. So these would be the employees that we're paying on a regular basis. This does not include any type of situations of daily substitutes and those types of things. But if a teacher is out for the year and somebody's replaced them, then that's just a one-for-one. And sometimes the change there is a leave of absence person left at 80,000, we replace them with a 40,000, and then the following year that number flips again. And so it flips now back to 80. So sometimes you'll see some of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I mean, this is a unique situation because we have potentially the task of deciding between 2 budgets this year. And just to explain how the process goes, the Finance Committee has to recommend a balanced budget. So without an override, the budget that's presented has to be balanced, which is most likely what's, the level services budget. If an override does go through, then there will be a new general government budget and a new school budget, separate from the other one. And if it goes through the election process and ends up at town meeting, the Finance Committee will then make a recommendation at town meeting which budget we recommend. So there's going to be probably a little bit of back and forth in this discussion between either budget. So,
Sure.
Because you're here and we can take advantage of both.
Absolutely.
First, when it comes to the level services budget, you're saying that right now these are when you have the reductions in the 2 classroom teachers and 2 retirees, do you anticipate any other?
One verbal so far, and that happened last week, but I don't have anything in writing. So when I prepared this budget for you, not only for you folks, but by February 27th to the school committee, I had 2 written commitments. In all of those situations, you'll see that the savings is only approximately $30,000 of their $80,000 budget because they're going to be backfilled. And so what that would mean is actually a less of a cost to the town because the two cuts will just move into those positions. So you're still down two, but you're not having to absorb any type of layoff situations on the town side.
So any questions?
Yeah. If in fact the override goes in the tank and you have, say, the 27,105,655 as your budget, what happens?
So you're talking about just getting Mike's recommendation of the 90?
I always have to ask the what if,
So-
because you know how nebulous overrides are in this.
Yes. Okay, so the level services right now is recommended through Mike's office is short about $70,000, give or take, from the level services. So that's Part A. I got to finagle the 70,000. So that's Part A. Part B then becomes that everything starting with full day K all the way down is not part of our budget anymore.
Okay.
So what we would have to do there is, we'll do what we do every year, which is, do I have leaves of absence in May and June after the budget season? Do I have somebody who leaves us in the summertime? We've had as many as 2 to 4 people. We've saved money, which has actually allowed for us to bring in the position that we wanted by retaining the person at a lower salary, or a new person at a newer salary, shifting the money into that position. We did that, for example, 2 years ago with the Dean of Students position at the Yale School, as an example.
So you do have a mechanism to handle this. It's not going to mean everybody's going to commit harry-carry, and there's not going to be a disaster.
No, I mean, I guess if I had to say that if there's ever a perfect time, you know, I heard very clearly, not only from you, Tom, but from many others, that it needed to be, if we're going to have this discussion about a budget override and so on and so forth, that it can't be a school override. And you clearly have noticed that our number is over $1,100,000 less than last year's request. We went back and we looked at 3 librarians, we made it 2. We're going to have to share them. The other thing we did is we really looked at trying to figure out some alternative ways, and I think that's when Dinesh, as the full-day kindergarten, we said, okay, let's take $175,000 one time, very fixed as a school committee vote. I know you don't care where the 175 goes in our budget, but I think it's important to communicate that we're utilizing it in that way. And again, this year, we said what we were going to do. I mean, we've taken some hits. Last year, we took all capital items from our budget. They're no longer here. Matter of fact, we utilized $100,000 of school choice to take care of the wireless at the high school, which it was such a priority, which is really like on the fine line of using those funds. But I made the call because kids are going up there and using those 3, 4, 5 tools for one student, as one example. And we heard loud and clear on things like fees. Believe me, I've heard a lot about the fees, and really the idea of trying to do something that makes the community understand that there is a community that has a responsibility for the safety of students on a bus and so on and so forth. Believe me, I hear it every snow day or every day, night before or the day after, depending if I canceled, didn't cancel, or was thinking to cancel, or canceled too late in the evening. So,
The other question I have, if I could, one more question. We've been talking about kindergarten forever, okay? And one of the things is always brought up that the reason we want, it shouldn't be the reason, but the reason is always brought up that the reason we're losing people to charter school is because we don't have free kindergarten, and that's why they're going. Can you give me a number of how many kids that went from here to kindergarten charter school?
total, I don't have the total since the charter school opened. On average, we go anywhere from 1 to 5. That's our typical. Now, we've had a couple of years of 14s.
Okay.
But lately, it's been 1 to 5.
So that
That-
means,
that
on average, we lose about 5 students a year that could have stayed here that have gone.
And then you have the private school.
Yeah,
So we have that situation as well, where we know we lose students.
okay. And, you know, the thing about kindergarten is I think almost every town around here practically has it.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to date myself now, but in the 1940s, we had free kindergarten in New York. We didn't pay for it. And here we are, a lot of years later.
Couple.
And we're talking about kindergarten. So I guess I don't understand the situation. But the thing about trying to say because we're losing kids to charter school, That's, as far as I'm concerned, that's not the reason to have free kindergarten in town. Kindergarten is a necessity as much as first, second, third, and fourth grade,
It's a great way to put it.
especially today, okay? So, I'm going to get phone calls on this, being a conservative, but still, it's something that we should get away from saying we're doing it because of kids going to charter schools. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and if we don't do it, it'll be mandated at some point.
Yeah, and I think you're, one of the things that a group of superintendents, I'm one of them that's included, is at the state level, we're really pushing this full-day kindergarten situation, simply because, if you remember last year, it's a wonderful little yin and yang that takes place, with all due respect to our elected officials, who I think are fantastic men who represent us well. But what we did last year is, we got a $20 increase per student from the governor. By the way, same recommendation this year. Not sure where this is going, by the way, but it's, again, the second part was the state legislature said, you know what, 20 is not enough. We're going to give you 55. So through the town coffers, we got $35 more of that, which became part of all the numbers that were mumbled and jumbled that gave us funding last year. In the same time that they did that, they cut an $18 million state full-day kindergarten grant, which cost us about $44,000. Which was all of the paraprofessionals that I had, part-time paraprofessionals I had in the program, which makes this a better program. So, and the other day, we had the passing of the AEDs, right? And we're now mandated as of next year to have AEDs in every classroom, and every building, excuse me, and, proper training and so on and so forth. And the response this year, when somebody asked the question, not to our elected officials, by the way, but to others, was, how are we going to pay for this? It's another $900. Times 5 buildings, $4,500. You're going to have to get a second one because you got a second floor and all these different regulations. And the response was, well, I'm sure the community will come together and do some fundraising. So I guess fundraising is now the legislative way of taking care of increases. And then the third part that goes with that is your recommended increased budget from the from the governor's office is $52,000. So what does that mean? If you got $1 million level services, nothing new, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is simply saying, here's 50 grand of it. Norton taxpayers come up with the other $950. At some point, this yin and yang is going to have to stop. I do hear some rumors about how that's going to stop. Chapter 70 right now is getting a lot of play. It's anywhere from $1 billion to $2 billion short in terms of the recommendation. I think they're going to try to see if they can do something with that. But then just the other day, the governor said maybe we're going to have 9 C cuts. So who knows?
Rick?
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, I guess, tonight's presentation was mostly, going forward with hopefully an override.
Right.
And just a couple of questions. I know that the 3 big points was full-day kindergarten, eliminate transportation fees for all students, and then eliminate pay-to-play athletics, 125, I think it was 500 for hockey. My question is that something that we can comfortably say, going forward, if this gets approved, that this will be continuous?
I'm here to tell you, I can't do 10 years out or even 1 year out considering that we've been paying healthcare costs of projected $350,000 every year since I was here, and last year it became $1.2 million.
Right.
So can I say that I can't make up for $800,000 problem that happened with the town last year?
Right. But, these are 3 objectives that you have.
Yes,
And I would think that those are priorities you keep in your pocket,
yes.
and I think that you should be, or do you feel comfortable 5 years? This should be something that
I feel comfortable.
continue forever and ever.
So in response,
perfect world.
my athletic program and my transportation in general are pretty fixed costs, right? I can pretty much project that the stipends for the coaches and activities and all that is going to go up 1 to 3%, on average 1 to 2%. I can't control certain line items like insurance coverage and all that sometimes we're mandated to do because I just can't control those, but we haven't seen any spikes in those per se, per students. Transportation, it's a 3-year bid every year. This year it's up almost $85,000. So that's kind of a, when I have a line item that goes up $85,000 on a $1 million increase, that's not a whopper of a line item. And I think that's one of the reasons why we spent a lot of time looking at transportation. In specifically, we also get inundated with literally there's more traffic in town, limited sidewalks, and so that's been a long discussion we've had internally at the administrative level on how to try to handle it. So can I guarantee 10 years out? No. I mean, one of the discussions that always takes place anytime you have an override is that everybody knows that next year's funding, everything goes back to the general fund. And we're right back here to discuss priorities, fixed costs, and so on and so forth. I don't control that. That's part of the protocol of the rules and regulations. We do think that depending on items that neither Mike and I can control, and Mike and I talk about this all the time, that we're going to have to really put together some limits in terms of our budgets as part of an override. But I also think that increasing taxes by $2.1 million is a pretty significant increase. Some of the issues that you see there before you on my side are personnel items. Those are pretty fixed increases from year to year because they're contractually connected. In terms of your questions about the fees, I know sports, again, it's that 2 to 4 range. Could I have a 5-year? I can and I have. Can I have a 1 year? Yeah, I could. So it's going to be, it's not a whopper of a hit to take this money into the budget and then say that it's going to increase by another 3%. I don't think is a deal breaker. Remember, almost 72% of our budget right now, outside of administration, is straight classroom. That's teachers. That's special ed, regular education. The other part I think that's important is that you'll see that in your handout, in the booklet, you'll see the special ed line item. I mean, we have the lowest percentage of the total amount of budget projected for next year's budget in special ed in the last 15 fiscal years. 15 fiscal years. There's only 1 year in there where it's even close. Everything else, it's off by about 2 to 3%, or I should say 2 to 2.2%, I think is the high and low. That's a lot of money that we are shifting or saving, right? And this year we projected a savings. I could have easily come to you and said, I'm concerned about cutting $239,000 from this budget. So our budget's up $239,000 more. But we've been really trying to do our homework with this. I can't guarantee that 2 kids don't move in. I always say Wisconsin, poor Wisconsin. But I can't guarantee that 2 kids don't move in from Wisconsin tomorrow morning. And for the rest of this year, they're a cost share. And on July 1st, they're $250,000 each. We also know we have students at 22 that are aging out this year that are saving us money.
No, the only reason I'm bringing that up is, I mean, it would be shameful or disheartening if in 3 years or 4 years from now, all of a sudden, full-day kindergarten is phased out.
I don't think you can do that. I can tell you right now, it would have to be a significant financial situation in the town that would cause that debate to start taking place again. I just can't see why we do that. I wouldn't cut a first grade class like that. Why would I cut an entire kindergarten program like that?
Well, that's why I asked the question.
I just can't see myself recommending that. I don't know who's going to be in my seat after me, but I cannot see myself making that recommendation to the school committee. The need for this is so significant that I think what we would be discussing is that there are other things we would have to look at, taking a look at cutting before we would ever look at cutting an actual program.
Well, that's why I brought up those 3 big points, because,
Right.
You have 2 years left on the contract for the transportation.
Right.
At $84K, hopefully it doesn't increase double digits in 4 years from now, or 3 years from now.
Yeah, well, we plan on, well, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to start negotiations with, in public, but I have some thoughts that I want to share with the school committee down the road, probably within the next year, about transportation and some options that we should look at that potentially gives us, if feasible, financial options.
Just one final question on your presentation. I did get a chance to look at this today earlier before you spoke tonight. I saw the pie chart of the students in 1 through 3, 4, 5, middle school, high school. And then you just brought up, and actually it's pretty even. Actually pre-K I think was 3% and 29% of the high school. And then you just brought up tonight, 134 students out of the Norton School District.
Just at the charter.
Okay. So, all right, so that's 134 just at charter?
Correct. We have about 134 students at the charter. I believe this year we have 89 or 91 at Southeastern, somewhere in the high 20s, low 30s at the Aggie. I don't have those numbers, but I can get you a copy of those numbers.
Now, I would think there's a transition period, like I can know that personally. 8th grade to 9th grade.
Yes.
What are the numbers have been present? What do you think in the future?
Well, I think a couple of things. My biggest issue with enrollment is always going to be what do we offer in terms of competition. My cover letter speaks clearly that I feel that.
Drop the mic.
I dropped the mic. The mic. I think that I'll just hold on to it now. I think that I think that competition is our biggest issue. Although to agree with Tom's comment about full day K is not about the private school or the charter school or another school. The fact of the matter is, I have to charge them, in one of those two instances. If you're looking at projected enrollment, which I think is what your question is, we're going to see a fluctuation between our current first grade and our current 8th grade every single year out. Why? A couple of different reasons. Number one, what are we offering that other schools aren't offering? And that is an expense line item. You don't have any. You have a computer science program at the high school that we want to enhance and really start up. Is probably the newest high school program that we have. Besides that, there are no Chapter 74 vocational, technical, or agricultural programs that we've looked at. Now, we are looking at the governor's grant on vocational technical education and seeing if we can dip into that a little bit. But we have kids that are going there. For example, right now, the current 8th grade, we have more applicants this year than we did last year to the regional vocational school. We haven't started to look at why in terms of student supply. The year before, we had our lowest number. The year before that, we had the highest number since I've been here. So we have this yin and yang that's taking place within it. When I speak to the parents one-on-one privately about why are you applying here or there, I get athletics. I can't tell you how often I get that. If I have to listen to somebody tell me one more time about an 8th grade going to Division I athletic program in 8th grade, I can't stop that discussion. There's something going on there where they believe their child's going to D1, so they have to go to a certain school. The second part becomes, I think, the programming. What's available to students in one school that's not. 3 years ago, I said that a certain school that visited our students in 8th grade and sold the 8th grade students by saying we have one-to-one Chromebooks. We have one-to-one Chromebooks in the entire 6th, 7th, and 8th grade now. It's a competition model. The offerings in the Voc Tech school, I know because I came from Voc Tech. For those of you who don't know, I spent 6 years as a teacher in a Voc school and 6 years in a different Voc Tech school as the academic director responsible for academic programming. Voc schools were plumbing and electrical and all the traditional shops that you all know. Today it's criminal justice. It's TV studio, just to name two of the big ones. It's pre-engineering. Those are big sellers for students. And if we're not doing STEAM or STEM and only the Voc is or the Aggie is, we're going to lose some of those numbers. I don't think that there's long-winded answer. I don't think there's a issue that is the reason for why. We've got more middle school sports, more middle school activities, more middle school stuff going on after school than we've ever had in the history of the town. And still students are choosing to go. Some of it is related to families. Dad, mom went to private school, public school. They want them to go. They think it's a better place for them to do their learning. Some of them are other issues, but in general, I don't think there's a issue. And if there is an issue that folks have, then what we've tried to do is find that information and get that information and communicate that information as much as we can to the internal staff. We have the best class sizes in a middle school that you could get, and our high school are reasonable. They're not the best, but they're reasonable. And academically, we do as well as any of the other area high schools in terms of all students. You want to take out my high-end students and compare them to anybody in the area? Come on, let's do it. Let's compare SATs, let's compare college placement, let's compare MCAS scores. If they have them, let's compare it. You take my top-tier students and not my average, because you got to remember, in certain instances, it's only certain groups of kids. We'll compare them with anybody. We've done it internally. We do really, really well. But I do have one problem, and that is I cannot look a parent in the eye and say that I can offer you a straight-out, criminal justice program with a Chapter 74 license. That's the reason why I don't spend a lot of time bashing my colleague at Southeastern. Southeastern is an extension of Norton Public Schools. They are able to offer the children that I've had the responsibility for another part of their education. They're not a competition. They're a school where they're an extension of Norton Public Schools. Same thing with the agricultural school, in my opinion.
Dr. Bayetta, on the full-day kindergarten, at your level-funded number of 27.3 roughly, should the override go sideways, that full-day kindergarten, it continues to be in there?
So right now, the level services you'll see is at $1,063,000. You'll see that full-day kindergarten is below that on the actual one-pager that you have.
Okay.
So the kindergarten is not part, if you will, of the level services.
Okay.
It's an extra cost. It'd be another it'd be 145 added to that.
Okay.
So if you wanted to say today, we would like to give the school department the $70,000 that Mike, and I'm not blaming Mike, I'm just saying he currently doesn't, and you'd like to give us another 145, I'm sure the school committee would agree to find the other 175 to do the full-day kindergarten as part of that, without all of those other line items. I can't speak for them, but I would guess they would vote that, because that's been the intent. The intent is to show that that cost is a cost that is trying to kickstart this program,
Yeah.
like we've done with other things.
And I think this year with the addition of the school choice, it makes, at least for me, it makes a huge difference.
It does. I think the thing that's interesting is that 145, don't quote me on this, but I believe the first year I presented to you, the budget for full-day K was about 170, 190, somewhere in that ballpark. Link isn't here tonight, but it was, yeah, it's like 170, it was under 200,000.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is two things. Number one, the cost has gone up $120,000, roughly for the same projected numbers. And with the paras in there part-time, so that we don't have a cost to the town in terms of their 15 hours, 3 hour a day, 5 days a week for each classroom. They're not hitting any cost to the town.
And have we seen a large, I'm sorry, Mike, have we seen a large influx of students as a result of the apartment complex on 123?
We have, I believe we're at 12 right now. I can get
12
you a
new to
direct-
the system, to the
Yes,
district?
yes. I believe 2 of those students, don't quote me, but I believe 2 of those students are actually changed from one side of town to the next, to the other. The projection we had was 18. Who knows what's going to happen? They're not even at 90% capacity over there yet. So we see some, apartments are always interesting because it's, the battle between apartments and condos and how young families move in. It's always it's a statistic that you can't really fix. We've always been, I think, modest or maybe even conservative in our approach to what the enrollment would be. What has really been a change is our October 1 number to March 1 numbers are up double digits. That's pretty significant. And we've also had some parents who have moved from being enrolled and want to stay, and they've moved to school choice. So, why leave if I like the system my children are in and I can get them here?
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? No, is there a statistic that shows students that left the district and then come back again later?
Well, I can tell you 2 things. Yes, I can get you that statistic. I can get you the actual number, how many bodies. It's more of a body thing than it is statistics. And 2, it usually happens after October 2nd. So the question you're going to ask me is, why does it happen after October 2nd? Because that's when the other communities get to count their numbers for the state money. So that means they're counted on your rolls at such and such a school, and you get the 10 grand, and then they come here, Norton, on October 2nd, and we get 0 until the next fiscal year. So, but I can, if you want that number, I can get a number of.
just curious.
Our mobility rate is
Okay.
our mobility rate is predominantly right now. In the prior years, it's been that middle school, high school students coming back from certain types of schools. Charter schools, if they're not offering athletics and certain activities, that type of stuff.
That's what I was thinking, because they don't have the same.
Right. I would like to leave you with a comment and take any other questions, but I'll end here by saying the reason why it's so important to be competitive is not just because of the competition model, in my opinion, but it's also because of what you're trying to provide students. But don't hold back that your regional vocational schools and agricultural school, which are our partners, and have accountability levels and so on and so forth, and do a great job. And our charter school, which also does a good job. But remember that the charter school is opening, as of this September, 4 400 new seats. We have no idea what that's going to mean to us right now, right? 400 new seats is a significant amount. So we have to be competitive in what we're offering to families and to choices. And one of our thoughts is to really reach out to families and not only reach out to those that have gone, but also reach out to those who are thinking of leaving us to that type of an option.
Any further questions?
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Have a great
Thanks,
day. Great evening.
I guess we can go on with the
Okay.
easy ones.
Well, before that, I just wanted to go over the inspection budget and animal control. The inspections budget, it's a net increase of $240. On personnel services, there's a $10 reduction, and expenses went up $250. The inspection department has 2 full-time people, clerk and the building inspector. And then we have 2 20-hour-a-week positions, the plumbing, wiring inspector, and the electrical inspector. And then we also have the outside inspectors who fill in when the plumbing inspector or the electrical inspector are unavailable, they're on vacation or what have you.
Do you want to move the mic over there so you can sit down?
No, I'm fine.
You sure?
Yep. Any questions on that?
Okay.
And then the next budget is the dog officer. And he's reduced his expenses, his expense request slightly, which I'll have to look at. And also on the personnel services, he has increased looking for some additional gross overtime. And then you'll see when we go through my budget presentation to you where some of the cuts had to be made. And so the animal control department, the dog officer has himself full-time, and he has a part-time person to fill in when he's on vacation.
Okay.
And then you have the letter that I presented to the selectmen last week with my recommendations for a level services budget. And as Joe was talking about, some of the constraints that we always have, obviously, is the health insurance. But this year, due to the changes made, we're seeing this savings of that health insurance again, where our health insurance this year went up 6%, but the plan we were on went up 30%. And then in my level services budget, my goal at the beginning was to see that the town, the library, the schools could increase 3% at a minimum, and we'd have money left over for articles on the fall town meeting. In the budgets as of I'm recommending now, and there could be some slight tweaking to that. The town increases 3%, the library 3%, and the schools 4%. And as Joe said, our state aid continues to be a very limited resource. The governor's proposal allocates a net increase to Norton of $113,133. And one of the things Joe was noting was the $20 per student. The goal was to be $100 per student, which would have been a great help to us. And also, again, of course, they don't fully fund special education, which they said they would when it was put in place, but never has.
Right.
And then on the local revenues, our new growth rate, the estimated is 395,000, which is being aggressive according to the town assessor. The increment for FY18, our 2.5% increment is $824,485. And our local receipts are estimated to go up $265,000. One of the things we're really striving for is to increase that new growth figure. And that's one of the reasons we have 2 articles for rezoning on the warrant this year. The comparison I can give is Mansfield. Their new growth is over $1 million every year. It's a great way to have a more stable budget process. Once again, I'm proposing to use $600,000 of free cash. And I know we don't like to use our free cash for the budget. It would be nice if we could hold that for OPEB stabilization and capital stabilization. But we do need to use a portion of that free cash. And this year, I also propose an increase of $100,000 out of ambulance receipts. I've talked to the fire chief about that. We do have money in there to cover that. I'll probably be bringing the capital recommendations to you next week, and you'll see that we are purchasing a new ambulance, and we have the money to do that without borrowing. And that's our goal with the ambulance fund, to fund some of the staffing positions as we increase. We hire only paramedics now. We have 2 ambulances going constantly, and we were lost a couple times this year. We had one of the ambulances, it's been a lemon, and it's constantly been going back to the shop, and other towns have come in to cover for us. We've increased our rates gradually to get up to where the other towns are, and so the revenue has been increasing. So the proposed school budget, as the superintendent was saying before, at $27,105,655, it's an increase of $993,369 over last year's budget. It's a 4% increase, but it is $70,421 less than their level services request, and does not include full-day kindergarten. The proposed town budget is $11,955,769, which is an increase of $338,359, and that translates to a 3% increase over the FY17 budget. The FY18 budget for the library would be $399,111, which is an increase of $11,625 over the FY17 budget, or 3%. Now, some of the cuts, in order to fund the town side budget: police overtime, $29,000, fire overtime, $25,000. 2 positions that the chief was proposing to add in the fire department in January at $48,944, and $12,500 in ambulance expense. Those are some of the major ones, and there's some smaller ones. If you look at the budget sheets, we've added a column on the right-hand side that lists where the cuts, what departments were cut. And fortunately, this year, our contribution to the Bristol County Retirement only went up $6,166. The Bristol County Retirement is due to be fully funded by 2028, so that'll be nice to see that when it finally happens, if we're here. But once that's done, what our auditors have recommended to us is that money that we're paying into the Bristol County Retirement System right now to bring that system up should continue to be put into OPEB, so we do have a steady stream of money going into the post-employment benefits program. And I will be reviewing these cuts with departments and come back to you with a final budget. And my recommendation is that we get this budget settled first and then move on to that possible override budget, because at town meeting, we'll have to have an A budget and a B budget. And we'll have to prepare that before the April 25th vote, because it'll be too close to town meeting to wait. So we'll have it if necessary, the B budget being the override budget and the A budget being the level services budget.
Some of the department heads brought the needs-based as opposed to level service.
Right.
Have they all presented those to you by now, or?
Yes, and I do have, when I present the override budget, I'll have those with me, their explanations, similar, like the library, and the proposal for them would allow them to stay open 50 hours, and they gave me a presentation for that. And if when we get to that, I don't want to confuse the two budgets now, but
Mike, so we only can take 2.5% more money in. But we're giving 4% for the school, 3% for the town. So there's 1.5, there's a half, another half for the schools. Does that money come from the 600,000 plus the extra receipts?
we have the 2.5 increment, which is, I gave you, plus our levy limit increases because of new growth.
Oh, okay.
Our levy limit goes up, and our local receipts, the increase in that, the increase in the ambulance, and our new growth this year
That's
that
where it
we're,
all comes out, okay. That's the simple math I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Just the simple.
Speaking about local receipts, what would you say percentage up year over year from last year?
what percentage our local receipts?
Roughly.
I would have to look at that, I'm not sure. I didn't get a percentage of it, I'll get that for you next time.
Okay,
All right,
all right.
thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And if you want to look through and let me know for next week's agenda, which budgets you'd want to start voting on.
Right. Well, the ones that you mentioned here, those were all set to be voted on.
Yeah, they're pretty
We
straightforward.
want, we've heard them all, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's come before us.
Yeah.
So whichever position, my position.
All we have next, the Southeast Regional's coming, right?
Right.
Yeah, but there's a fixed number. They can say
Right.
whatever
Okay,
they want.
so
We
we
can say whatever
ready
we
to-
want. They
Yeah, well,
can-
just because it's brought up now, they did send a letter with our assessments can be $996,390.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a no-brainer. We tried one year not to pay it. That was a fun time. They took it anyway.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess, we can do Southeast, and then we can just start.
So just let's vote on budget, okay.
Okay.
Yep,
Yep.
all right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Move.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we have minutes from March 6th.
I can't, I have to abstain.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I want you to approve it. Pick on any spellings. Unit.
Yes.
Did I not do it right?
No, it's
Get it
good.
right.
Nice.
Well won. Paul's not here. We're not sure.
Yeah, so you guys can just overlook those.
Mr. Chairman,
Rick?
I move that we approve the meetings of March 6th.
Second?
Motion is second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Is there any other matters anyone would like to bring up?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.